Hey, can you hear me all? All right, guys, this is the agency class. And so far we have myself, Alicia's here, Margaret, right? Louise is here, Mark, Tasia, and Nancy. Hi, Nancy, can you hear us?
You hear me?
Yep, perfect. Glad you're there. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to make sure everybody was able to get their hands on the package. It's all numbered with the pages 1 through 17. Starts with this one here, the agenda. Everybody got that?
Yep. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, great. So the agency, we call it the agency form, everybody, but it's really called the Massachusetts Mandatory Real Estate Licensee Consumer Relationship Disclosure. Okay, and basically what it is it's a form that's going to, if you do it right, will save you a lot of time and aggravation and grief. It will raise your professionalism much higher than anybody else that doesn't use the form as a matter of using their business. It's basically going to, raise you above the clowns that are out there. Okay, to kind of borrow the Remax phrase, so to speak. You'll be above the crowd by using this form and utilizing it the right way. Okay. Now, if you look at the form, this is on page 3. It's your third page, right? Everybody just glance down. I want you to notice that it says this is not a contract. Does everybody see that? Mm-hmm. Right, so this is not a contract, right? So acknowledge that, and then make sure you point that out to people. And right above that line, what's the second word? Anybody see the second word next to Massachusetts?
Mandatory.
Mandatory,
right? So that means you can use it if you want to, right?
No.
No.
You have to use it.
You have to use it, Mark. It's exactly right. What that means is it's got to be presented. And look at the next bullet point there, right? The time when the real estate licensee must provide this notice to the consumer. Everybody want to read that for a second and we'll talk about it? You must present this form at the first personal meeting with the person to discuss a specific property. Not after you've shown them 10 houses. Mm-hmm. Not when it's time to sit down and do the listing presentation. It's the first personal meeting. Okay. Now, are you allowed to maybe break the ice a little bit and have a little bit of a conversation? Of course. Okay. Of course. So generally speaking, though, if let's say you're on a listing presentation and it's a first step and you've done all your pre-listing stuff or whatnot, I would definitely tell the sellers on the phone call, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I just want to let you know that one of the things we're going to have to discuss is the mandatory licensee consumer relationship disclosure. Don't worry, I'll have the form with me and I'll give you a copy of it before I leave. Fair enough? And if they say, well, what is that? You can offer to email it to them ahead of time. Okay? So the appointment comes, you go there, you ring the doorbell, it's 4 o'clock, and we have an appointment at 4 o'clock. I'm here to see the house. May I come in? And you take them to the kitchen table, just like all of us good, bold graduates do, right? You sit down at that kitchen table, and you're going to break the ice a little bit. Talk about whatever it is. Maybe they were referred to you by somebody, and you bring up the person that referred you, and you kind of have a nice little chat. And you say, okay, well, why don't we start talking? But before we do, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I told you about that consumer relationship form I have to show you. By the way, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, have you met with any other agents? And you listen to what they say. Now, what if they say no? Is that a big deal? No. You say, okay, great. I get to be the lucky person that gets to explain this wonderful form to you. And then you bring it out, and it's the blank one, okay? Basically, and here's the script I always use, okay? So if you want to jump ahead to it, it's page 6, facilitator, okay? Page 6, facilitator. Okay, great. So I bring this out and I have a copy for them and a copy for me, okay? And I turn it upside down so you learn how to read it upside down, everybody, okay? Mm-hmm. And I point out the important stuff. I say, by the way, I want you to realize this is a mandatory form, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, okay? And by the way, also, this is not a contract, okay? It says it right there in bold. And it also says, and I'm pointing this out right in front of them with my finger like I am, you can't see me, but I'm using it. The time when the real estate licensees must provide this notice to the consumer, all real estate licensees, that's me, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, must present this form to you at the first personal meeting with you to discuss a specific property. So today, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we're sitting here talking about the possibility of you selling your house. Okay, so the legislature, in their infinite wisdom, said right away, you need to know whose side of the table I'm on. Okay, and they give you the three choices down here in the middle boxes. There's the seller's agent, buyer's agent, and facilitator. Now, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, obviously we're not talking about buying anything today, so that's going to be out the window. Now, you might jump ahead and think right away, we should be a seller's agent. That does, though, have some inherent obligations from you to me and me to you. And I literally just walked in the door here a couple minutes ago. So unless you're prepared to hire me today, I would suggest to be a facilitator. Fair enough? Yeah, let's do that, Rich, and then they sign it. Okay? Now, guys, did you notice the pause? A little pregnant pause there. Yes. What would happen to see if they said, well, yeah, we're going to hire you, Rich? What would I have done?
In the seller's agent.
Seller's agent. Jumped right into it because they said, yeah, we're ready to hire you. All right, that's great. If you know that information right from the first 2 minutes, you guys, you're in control. You got it. You're like, yes, I got one. Woohoo! You know? All right, so you're doing things a lot differently. Hey, paint that, fix that, clean that up. You know, I mean, because you're the boss. They're going to hire you. But most of the time they don't. Okay? Now, that's just the basic form here. Let's go back to the outline. Agency, if you heard the acronym before, called old car. Okay, we're going to cover those in the class here as well. I'll cover those now. Obedience. Okay, you have to follow the lawful instruction of your client. All right, if your client says, hey, can you go into my house? I'm getting divorced from my wife, and can you steal all her jewelry and bring it to me? Can you do that?
No.
Lawful instructions, but you got to obey. If they say, tell everybody we're going to do highest and best on Tuesday at 12, what do? You tell everybody you're going to do highest and best Tuesday at 12. That's their lawful instruction. Okay. You're late, my man, Dennis, but that's all right. Loyalty. Loyalty is also important. That means that you work for that person, you're loyal to that person. Okay. That's why it's important to only have one party that you represent. You also have to have disclosure, okay? Disclosure of important facts that would help them make an informed decision and help them either make or save money. Understand? Confidentiality is another thing. If they say to you, don't tell anybody, but we're getting a divorce and no one knows, and you know, we don't want it to get out because it'll probably hurt our negotiating power. You know, someone says to you, hey, why are they selling? What do you say?
I don't know.
You say that the home no longer suits their needs. Is a great line. Just remember that one, okay, guys? The home no longer suits their needs.
Yeah.
Let me unmute Dennis here. Mr. Dennis, can you hear us? I think he wants to be muted. Okay, and then the two that doesn't matter if you have an agency relationship with anybody or not, are the accounting of funds. Basically, if you've got a check in your hands, you got to get it to the escrow person. In our office, that goes to Faye. And if you have a buyer offer for another listing, another office, get it to that office as soon as possible. Now, is it practical these days with coronavirus to go drop it off at the office? No. I think you drop it off in the mail slot and you mail it to them, okay? And the reasonableness of care means you know your you-know-what from your elbow, okay? You got to be able to do your job, and by doing the Zoom trainings that you're doing like this, you're learning how to do your job, okay? So those two are for anybody. Now the OLD and C, obedience, loyalty, disclosure, and confidentiality, those are only for your clients. So for your sellers, when you're a seller's agent, and your buyers, when you're a buyer's agent. Does that all make sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Any questions so far? No? Okay.
No.
Great. All right. Seller's agency in the form. Okay. Mark, you had a great question. I always say, just please let the marketplace dictate your agency relationship. Okay. Let the marketplace. So what I mean by that is this. If you go on a listing appointment, Mark, okay, well, you can't because Corey does it, but let's pick on you, Margaret. Margaret, you got a nice listing. Okay. The seller called you up, or you were doing your cold calling and your lead gen and stuff, and you found somebody and they say they want to sell. Okay. And you get that listing, you work hard, you agree on a price, agree on a marketing plan, and they say, where do we sign, Margaret? We want to go with you. Congratulations, by the way. Very happy for you.
Mhm, thank
All
you.
right. So you market that listing, right? You're going to do everything you can to get it sold, not only for your clients, but for you and your family, so you can make some money, right? As you go about the marketing of that listing, buyers are going to see that listing and come to you, are they not?
That's right.
Okay. What came first, the seller or the buyers?
The seller.
The seller, right. So guys, what I'm saying, what I'm getting at is the market caused her, Margaret, by having a listing to have buyers call her up on that listing. Okay. Those buyers are going to come to her and say, I'd like to see the house. So does she have to give them this?
Yes.
Of course she does. Of course she does. Now, the seller caused her to get the buyers. What type of agency can we agree on that she should be for the buyers? Anybody want to hazard a guess?
She's representing both of them. It's a dual.
Good point, you would think, except no. Because here's the thing, you cannot, guys, cannot kick your seller to the curb that fast, okay? Let's jump ahead, look at page 5, buyer/customer. Everybody got that page 5 there? If you notice that below, which one do we check off for a customer?
Designated.
Seller's agent, though, Margaret, see above that? Yep.
Yes, okay, excuse me, yeah.
Okay, so this is a form you use for a buyer who is a customer. And
Okay.
those type of people, you guys, they come to you as a result of marketing your seller listing because the seller was first. If you didn't have that listing, you wouldn't have met the buyers, correct? That all makes
That's
sense,
right.
everybody?
Yes.
All right. And if you had a buyer that, Margaret, that just came into you out of the blue, they just call you up and said, Margaret, we hear you're a great buyer's agent. We want to buy a house, right? That's okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And they just come in out of the blue. Feel free to interview them and you can become a buyer's agent with them because how did they come to her, guys, right? The market just caused the buyers to go to her. I would urge you, everybody, please, while you're meeting with buyers, if you're carrying active listings, think in the back of your mind, would they be a fit for my listing? Because you want to avoid dual agency as much as you can, okay? If they're a fit for your listing, we'll cover that a little bit later, but before you jump into business with them, maybe you just take them in the car and go look at or meet them there in the age of coronavirus and show them the house first to see if they like it. And if they do, then you got to figure it out, okay? And I'll hopefully help you figure it out all the way through. All right, let's go back. So we're talking about seller agency in the form. For your sellers, you're going to use the one on page 3. Okay, everybody got page 3? Let's note some really important things about this, okay? Is that the seller or buyer's agent, it is checked off seller's agent. So obviously you're working for the seller, okay? Everybody got that? So this is when they're ready to hire you, okay? When they're ready to hire you. Notice below as well that I've also checked off which box. Was it the dual agency or the designated agency?
Designated.
Designated agency. Yep, we are a designated agency shop, okay? And what it also is checked below is the other little box below. Everybody see that one?
Yep.
It says only the licensee named herein represents the seller because that person works for the seller. Mark, Louise, Tasia, Nancy, all you guys, if it's Margaret's listing, even me, you guys can all work for the buyer. It's just Margaret and the seller. So the way I explain this form is I say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you're prepared to hire me today, which is great. I'm looking forward to taking the listing. So I want you to know on this form, I have checked off that I'm working as a seller's agent. And what you also need to know is that I am a designated agent. I am your only designated agent. So what that means is if somebody else from our office comes here, like Mark or Louise or Tasia or Margaret or whatever, they likely represent the buyer, not you. So basically, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, it's me and you against the world, okay? So just because someone comes here from Keller Williams, don't assume unless I've told you that they work for you because they likely work for the buyer. Fair enough? Okay, Mr. Masellas, you can see I've signed it and here's my license number and everything. If you don't mind, put your John Hancock down here. So guys, what you can take out of this is you see where it says Keller Williams Showcase Properties and 7737. Those should be automatically filled in on every one of your agency forms. You probably want to have 25, not quite blank, but with your name, your signature, your license number, and if you're a broker or salesperson, and the Keller Williams Showcase 7737 already pre-filled in and signed, and keep those with you. Because, I mean, the law is very specific. First personal meeting to discuss a specific property, okay? You're standing in a line at Shaw's, 6 feet away from the person in front of you. And you got your name tag on like Dennis McDonald always has, right? And the person says, oh, you're in real estate. Hey, how's the market? Market's great. Hey, how much is for the house down the street at 123 Main Street? Are you discussing a specific property? Technically, should you get the form out? So should you have one in your briefcase? You say, why don't you come out to my car and from 6 feet away, we can talk about the property. That's how it's supposed to be, guys. You're supposed to have these forms with you at all times, okay? So keep about 25 of them in your car, okay? So now I want to point out something about the designated agency. We are blessed in this office to have Alicia. Alicia Lowe is our team leader, as you guys all know. And she is, there's a smiling little face. She is not an active agent, which is great. She, runs the office, maintains the staff, recruits, goes on recruiting appointments, and recruits. Those are the things she pretty much.
This is Alicia. I didn't know this was Alicia Lowe.
It's Alicia.
Okay.
Good to meet everyone.
Nice to meet you,
And I
finally.
haven't had a chance to meet in person.
That's right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't recognize you.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Well, guys, she's our designated agent. What that means is she's our appointing agent. So she would say, Margaret, you work for the seller. She doesn't do that, right? And she'd say, hey, Mark Gilson, you work for the buyer. She doesn't do that. But ultimately, she's the one who's at all times is our dual agent within the office, okay? So here's the big thing for all you guys listening to me right now. If you have a co-broke going on within Keller Williams Showcase Properties and it's not going well, you can't go in and kvetch and moan to Alicia because she's the dual agent. If Margaret's complaining about Rich to Alicia, Alicia's got to be like, stop, don't talk to me. Don't talk to me. I can't have this. I'm the dual agent. I can't be hearing details of the deal. Go talk to Rich, okay? Or go talk to somebody else, but not Alicia. Everybody understand that?
Mm-hmm.
So
Just me like Switzerland.
Switzerland, I like it. So basically, guys, that allows us to, in about 99.9% of cases, not have to worry about dual agency ever in this office. So it's great. It's great. Okay. So, and if you look at page 4, on the back of that would be, so you want to have this is the front side and this is the back side, okay, of those forms. You want to have them for the customer. When they look at it, it should be like this. You flip it over, there it is, back and forth. Makes sense? For you, you can just have the one-sided form, okay? Because you don't really care about what's on, about the descriptions of all of them. But your homework for tonight is please read through these so you understand what each one is, okay? At some point, it does detail a little bit better than I'm doing quickly here, okay? So that is our seller agent form, okay? So we got a listing. I'm going to pick on somebody else now. I'll pick on Louise. Louise is now full-time, just retired from her job the other day. Yay, good job, Louise. Louise has herself a listing, right? Because she's been working hard and doing all the right things and calling people and doing all her wellness checks and all that stuff. And she's got a listing, okay? First of all, let's talk about getting listings in the age of coronavirus. Now, I think your first question is when you get somebody that says, yeah, I'm thinking about selling my house. I think your first question is, great, occupied or vacant? And if they say it's vacant, you say, perfect. That's pretty much what we're working on these days till April 7th. When can you leave the door unlocked for me? Seriously. And they say, well, I'm not comfortable with that. Okay, why not? Because we're not supposed to be with each other. We're not supposed to see each other. I know you don't really know me, but I was referred to you by so-and-so. How about we pull up out front together, you go unlock the door and then go back in your car, and then I'll go in and walk all around the house, and I'll leave and go back into my car, and you can go lock it up. And then I'll go back to my office and do my research, and I will email you, and we'll have phone calls and all that until April 7th, and we can officially, end this social distance. Fair enough? That makes sense, guys? All right, so, if you have to, you could say, well, they're not comfortable, unlocking and leaving unlocked. Okay, I'll go by ahead of time, and I'll put a lockbox on there for you. Right? What's a four-number code that you, Mr. Seller, would remember? And don't say 1, 2, 3, 4, please. All right. And they tell you do 9468. Okay, great. That's your code, 9468. I'll put a lockbox on there, and you can go by. Let me know when the key's in there, and I will then let myself in and look all around. Now, agents, what you want to do is go. Probably have a glove or wear gloves. Try not to touch anything. Just walk through, do your thing, take your notes, measurements, etc. leave, reset the lockbox, and throw your gloves away, because hopefully they're disposable gloves. And do all your homework and everything remotely. And all of these forms, you know, our agency disclosure and our agreement for exclusive right to sell, they can all be sent via .loop and soon to be DocuSign. So you don't actually have to meet with the people. And you can future date them to say April 8th, when hopefully this all lifts and you're able to go forward and have it actually be on the market. That all makes sense, guys? So this is, you know, listing houses in coronavirus times. All right. If it's an occupied house, I think then you probably want to say, I'll be in my car. You know, when I see you guys leave, I'll go in and I'll walk all around. And then when I'm done, I'll leave and you can go back in your house and we'll talk and email and communicate that way. Okay. And again, same thing, gloves, don't touch anything. You know, and if you're not comfortable with it, tell them. Just say, I'm not doing any listing appointments right now. I'd be happy to talk to you after this is all over with. Whatever you feel best about, guys, okay? Whatever you feel best about. All right, so Louise, you got a nice listing, and it's after April 7th, so you can actually, you know, because we're non-essential people, right? You can actually leave your house and go out and drive around and do listings and all that stuff. And you got this house on the market, and right away your phone rings, and it's a buyer. And the buyer says, hey, I see you got that new listing on 123 Main Street. And you're like, yeah, it's a hot one. And they say, you know, yeah, they ask their general questions about it and stuff. It sounds like, in the end, they say, hey, this sounds like something I'd like to go see. Can I come out and take a look at it? So you're a real estate broker. What do you say?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Of course, because you can show anybody anything, right? Except you're going to ask them two really important questions. Number one is you're going to say, first, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, my last question, is there someone who's been regularly showing you houses who's working with you? Now, why would you ask that?
I'm going to make sure they don't have a buyer's agent.
Yeah, because do you want to go out and show people, other agents, customers, your listing?
Customers, yeah.
No, gosh, no. So make sure the answer to that is no, I haven't been working with anybody. Because if they say, well, yeah, I have, say, wonderful, you know, who are you working with? Well, I'm working with, you know, Mark Gilson from Keller Williams. Oh, I know, Mark, he's in my office. This is great. Give him a call. He can make an appointment and get you in there. Okay, goodbye. Get off the phone. There's no reason to waste your time with a buyer that's not going to be able to work with you. Okay, let's say they say no. Okay, that's great. So you got no agent you've been working with. That's fine. And I just want to ask too, are you pre-approved, or are you going to be paying cash for the property? Now, why is that question important to anybody?
Well, you don't want to waste your time either.
Thank you. Very good, Louise. You do not want to waste your time. They say, well, no, I just want to look at the house. You know, I'm sure I'll be fine with the mortgage and all that stuff. It's up to you. That's a gut call. If you want to go and show it to them, I don't have a problem with it. I personally wouldn't. I'd be like, what do you mean you're not going to have a problem? You know, why don't you just go get pre-approved? I mean, you can't, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, understand my seller's not going to accept an offer from someone without a pre-approval letter with the offer. So you're wasting everybody's time here. Okay, so they say no to the first question, they don't have an agent, and yes to the second. I'm paying cash, or I'm pre-approved, I'm ready to go. Wonderful. Set up a time and go see him. Go show it to him. Go show it to him. But remember, it's a meeting to discuss a specific property, right? You got to bring out the form. So maybe before you get off the phone with them, you tell them about the form, that you're going to have it with you, okay? And they are a buyer customer, guys, because what happened? Louise, you marketed your listing, right? And by marketing your listing, this person called you. It wasn't the other way around. It wasn't that the buyer called you first and you got a listing out of it, was it? The marketing of the listing caused you to get a buyer customer. You're going to use this form, and it's going to say that you're a seller's agent, okay? But it also protects them because it only says that you're the seller's agent and only you work for the seller, nobody else. So if they, at the end of the time, say, geez, Louise, I really like this house, but I'm not comfortable that I don't have anybody that can advocate and negotiate and advise me. Can you help me with someone to write up the offer? And she says, yeah, I got my good friend Tasia, and I'll right for you. I hate to see it. It's Louise. Got a person from my listing here. They really like it. They don't want to work with me because I'm working for the seller. Can we agree on compensation, and you write it up and work with a buyer? Now, what I've done in the past, guys, twice now, is it's a 50-50 split on the buy side. Because if you think about it, there's tremendous value in having the buyer. There's also a lot of work. A lot of work. Those of you who have been in production and know, right, Tasia, getting from A to Z is a lot of work. So 50, yeah, 50-50 is generally what we've done. And then in the end, the original agent takes the buyer back for the 33 touch. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. So let's say, Louise, we're at that point and you're showing the house to the people and they say, we really like it. You know, we think we want to make an offer. Can you write up the offer? Can you write up the offer, Louise?
I can, yes.
Of course, yeah, because you're a real estate broker, you're a real estate agent. So you've already gotten the buyer customer form signed, okay? And by everybody note too, by the way, down the bottom, it's a little box here that says the consumer has declined to sign this form. They can do that, okay? That said, if someone is so untrusting completely that they won't sign a paper that is not a contract, is simply a disclosure, they got issues, okay? They have serious trust issues. And I bet you anything that they're not going to trust you enough to do business with you, okay? So if anybody checks that little box at the bottom, let me know if they end up doing business. I've had it happen once in over 1,000 deals, okay? One time they checked the box and it actually worked out. The rest of them, I never heard from them again. All right, so you got the customer form. You have to ask the question, okay? Louise, you got to ask the question. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, you have the right to be represented by a buyer's agent. Or did you still want me to write it up for you? As long as you ask that question, they say, no, Louise, we're comfortable with you. We trust you. We know you work for the seller, but you know, we think you'll be fair and honest with us. Because what will you be? You will be fair and honest with them. You just work for the seller. You know, if they say to you, what should we offer? Well, how about 10 grand over asking price? I mean, you know, should we get a mortgage? No, pay cash. I mean, don't waive the inspection, Mr. Buyer. It's stupid to have an inspection. That's $400, $500 down the drain.
That's where the old car comes in, right?
Exactly. You're OLD&C. You're working for the seller. All right. You want to get the best price and terms for the seller. So that's why a lot of times the buyer, if they know what they're doing, they will say, hey, listen, I would like to have a buyer's agent. Can you find me somebody? Or that's when it truly comes out that they have been working with an agent and they just didn't want to waste their time to show up in the house. They want to waste yours. That'll happen to you too. Fun stuff. When that happens, you're like,
What do you do if you do show them the house and then they come back with an agent?
That's a great question, Margaret. If you ever notice on my listings, oftentimes I'll have a certain amount under the buyer agent, and it's a funny number. It's a funny number. And that is to protect myself in the event of these type of things happening, everybody, okay? What that means is I've held a little bit back to make sure that the buyer's agent's actually doing their job. And if they don't, like if they didn't show the house or something along those lines, then that's all they get. And I keep the difference for my trouble and my time. It's a business decision, whatever you want to do. You do know, and Alicia's watching me, we have this for the co-brokes, for facilitator, and I urge you, please, for facilitator or buyer's agent to have, you know, the same amount. We'll cover that in a minute here, okay? But that's what I do to protect myself. So it's up to you guys, whatever you think.
So it would still be if they came in with a buyer's agent, would it be an even split or just what you put on it? Just however you split it.
If the buyer's agent is doing a great job, as we get the purchase and sale, I call them up and say, hey, by the